Is Parshas B'Shalach, and in Parshas B'Shalach we learn about the mitzvahs shenetztavu b'moro, Shabbos, Pora Aduma, and the dinim. And the topic we'll be briefly discussing this morning is Machshirin. So in various different mitzvahs, which are doiches Shabbos, the question is, are Machshirin mitzvah also doiches Shabbos, or only the mitzvah in itself? Machshirin means, before performing an actual mitzvah that's doiches Shabbos, sometimes you need to do other things in preparation. So the fundamental sugya, source number 4 on our source sheet, is the Machlokes Rebbe Eliezer and Rebbe Kiva. Mila bezmano doiches Shabbos. And if they forgot to bring the sakin shel mila, and everybody comes together in shul, the baby, the moyel, the sandik, Avia Ben, even the kvata is ready, and the moyel opens his bag, he forgot to bring the sakin shel mila, the knife. Rebbe Eliezer says, run home and bring it. Moitze meshus l'shus, but mila is doiches Shabbos. Rebbe Kiva says no. Mila doiches Shabbos, but Machshirin mila not. Psochim Samach Hayom the Weiss, number 5, is a very lengthy discussion, same machlokes regarding Korban Pesach, or Korban Tomid, or other Korban Yisibah that are doiches Shabbos. But the Shochit forgot the sakin. Could you bring it on Shabbos? Rebbe Eliezer says yes, Rebbe Kiva says no. Rebbe Eliezer goes far further, and he says, if you need to sterilize the sakin shel mila, you could chop wood to make coal, to put on a fire, to boil water, to sterilize the knife, the sakin shel mila. Machshirin doiches Shabbos, and Rebbe Kiva says no. So our question is regarding other areas. Machshirin yochel Nefesh. So you're allowed to cook food on Yom Tov. How about Machshirin yochel Nefesh? Cooking, yes, but if you don't have firewood, could you chop wood to stoke a fire to cook food on Yom Tov? Rebbe Yehuda says yes. Chachamim say no. And that is in Beit Zechov Ches and a Megillah Dav Zayin. So an interesting comment. Who was the Rebbe of Rebbe Yehuda? Who knows? Rebbe Yehuda, Stam Rebbe Yehuda in Shas is Rebbe Yehuda Bar Eloi. He was a Talmud of, how do you know? What? Great. Rabbi Seinu Shebedorim. We assume Rabbi Seinu Shebedorim greatly respected their Rebbe, Rebbe Kiva. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin Peivav. Stam Mishnah, Stam Tosefta, Stam Sofro, Stam Sofri, Vekulu alibe de Rebbe Kiva. So Rebbe Kiva says, Machshirin mila, Machshirin Pesach, einam doiches Shabbos. Rebbe Yehuda says, Machshirin yochel Nefesh are doiches Shabbos. So there must be a difference between Machshirin yochel Nefesh on Yom Tov, not Shabbos, and Machshirin mila on Shabbos. Why would there be a difference? I think the difference is, when the Torah is matir a malacha, we assume maybe the Torah is only matter this malacha, and you cannot broaden the scope of this kula to Machshirin as well. So by Mila, the Torah is matir the malacha of Netilas Neshama, because Mila always involves one malacha, Netilas Neshama. You're drawing blood. The same with Shchitas HaKorban. But when the Torah is matir melecha soichal nefesh, it could mean many, many things, not only one thing. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda assumes that will include everything. Because by Yom Tov, the Torah is not matir a ma'isa mesuyim, but rather a matora mesuyemes, an objective. And the way the Or Sameach defines it in Perek Beis of Hilchas Mila, in Yom Tov, the mitzvah of Shvisa b'Yom Tov stands against Simchas Yom Tov. Which of the two principles of Yom Tov override the other? So it's a gzeres hakosav that Simchas Yom Tov overrides Shvisa b'Yom Tov, because these two are both associated with Kedushas Hayom, and therefore we assume that Machshirin and Nefesh are the same. It's Simchas Yom Tov. However, Mila has nothing to do essentially with Shabbos. Korban Pesach and Tumah don't really have anything to do with Shabbos. And therefore, our interpretation would be that the Torah is matter a ma'isa mesuyim, not a inyan mesuyim. And that is why Rabbi Akiva maintains, Ein lechu boi ela chidushoi. Mila doiche Shabbos, but not Machshirin Mila. Shchitas HaKorban doiche Shabbos, but not Machshirin HaKorban. Yom Tov is different. Yom Tov is not a ma'isa mesuyim that the Torah is matir, but preparation of food. And that is shoichet, mafshit, merleach, mevashel. According to the Rambam, koitzer, boirer, merakid. According to the other Rishonim, it's only melisha ve'elech, but we won't go into the details. But that is the fundamental difference between Machshirin and Nefesh. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who is a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, is mutar. Mila korbanoi sibor alochik Rabbi Akiva she'asu. Mechlokes Rishonim regarding Machshirin and Nefesh. Some Rishonim say yochid v'rabim alochik rab, alochik chachomim asu. The Rambam seems to paskin according to Rabbi Yehuda that it's mutar. But it's clear that Machshirin and Nefesh are different than Machshirin Mila. And this brings us to source number 3. Kiddush HaChodesh. And that is a mitzvah we read last week in Parshas Boi. HaChodesh is Elochem Rosh Chodoshim, Rishon Elochem L'chodshei Hashana, Kiddush HaChodesh. The Mishnah says that Eidim are allowed to be Mechala Shabbos. They are mechuyev to be Mechala Shabbos to come to Beis Din to testify. So once upon a time, every month, the Beis Din was Mekadosh HaChodesh al pi Eidim. When Eidim come to Beis Din, we saw that small sliver of a moon, Chidush HaLavona. Beis Din convenes, get together, the Mekadosh HaChodesh, Mekudash. And Eidim should be Mechala Shabbos. And therefore, Im Eina Yochel Halech, and Eid is old or handicapped, Markiva Noisel HaChamoira. And if he's in bed, we'll bring him with his bed. Ve'im tzoido lahem, mevi'en maklois. If they need to go a forest, and maybe Robin Hood is lurking in the forest, or some other thugs, then they take along sticks to fight off the crooks who are in the forest. And if it's a long way, they bring food. So we're Mechala Shabbos for Kiddush HaChodesh. The beginning of Perek Beis, Chazal say that by Toisim tried to fool the Chachamim, and they used to hire false Eidim to testify false testimony. So the Chachamim were metaken that Beis Din will not accept testimony only from people they know and trust, and they know that they're Elocha people. And if the Beis Din doesn't recognize the Eidim, then we need to bring other Eidim who don't testify about the moon, they testify about their friends. 2 Eidim that say, these are Eidim Ksherim, and Beis Din could rely on their testimony. And even those second Eidim are Mechala Shabbos. So the Pnei Yeshua wonders, in Rosh Hashanah Chof Aleph, and we have it source number 7 on our sheet, why is Kiddush HaChodesh different than Mila or Korbanos Tzibur. So why by Kiddush HaChodesh we say Machshirim are also Deicher Shabbos? And this is Machshirim, a second group of Eidim that only comes to testify that the first Eidim are trustworthy, and we bring food that the Eidim should be able to eat or drink on their way, and sticks to fight off the bad guys who might attack us on the way. The Pnei Yeshua writes Yes Liyashiv, but it doesn't share with us what does he have in mind. I think that this is a very simple one. And actually, if you turn over the page, source number 11, Shekel HaKodesh. Does anybody want to guess who is the Shekel HaKodesh on the Kiddush HaKodesh? Anybody know? That's right. And he makes this very simple comment. And he says, Mila always involves Chilul Shabbos, and so does Korbanos, Hamal v'Hashoichet. But Kiddush HaChodesh, into itself, doesn't involve any Chilul Shabbos. Where's the Chilul Shabbos? When Bezin says Mekudash, Mekudash, Mekudash. When Eidim say we saw the moon. So when the Torah says Kiddush HaChodesh Deicher Shabbos, it is always Machshirim. What else could it be? So when the Torah is matir a ma'aseh mesuyim that involves a malacha, there's a svara to say ein lecha bo yeh chedushay. The Torah is matir mila. How do you know the Torah is matir bringing the second shal mila? Same by Korbanos. But when there's a gzeres because of that Kiddush HaChodesh Deicher Shabbos, which Chilul Shabbos is incurred by Kiddush HaChodesh. So it's always Machshirin. If the Eidim need to be Machal Shabbos to come to Beis Din, that is Machshirin. And therefore Machshirin has no limit. Doesn't depend whether it's close or far, or Machshirin or Machshirin, it's always Machshirin. So we have three different levels. Mila, Korbanos, Halacha Rebbe Akiva, Machshirim einam doichem es Shabbos. Machshir Yochel Nefesh, Machloikes Chachomim v'Rebbe Yehuda. It's different than Mila v'Korbanos, because Rebbe Yehuda is a Talmud of Rebbe Akiva. Rebbe Akiva asks by Mila v'Korbanos, Rebbe Yehuda is Mata b'Yochel Nefesh. Everybody agrees Halacha Rebbe Akiva b'Chaveirov, and the Rambam and all the other Rishonim Paskin Machshir Mila einam doichem es Shabbos. Regarding Oichel Nefesh, the Rambam Paskins in accordance to the view that there is the Shabbos. And we explained why. Because Oichel Nefesh is different than Mila and Korbanos. Mila and Korbanos is one specific Maisa, one specific Malacha. And therefore it's more reasonable to say that Torah is Mati, Mila, Shchitas HaKorban, but nothing beyond that. Oichel Nefesh could be many, many things. But the third category is Kiddush HaChodesh. And by Kiddush HaChodesh, it's not even a discussion. No machlokes, not even a discussion. Mishnayos Mefuroshes. And we never find anywhere the two words, Machshirei Kiddush HaChodesh, because it's not even a question. And why is that? Because Kiddush HaChodesh into itself never involves Chilul Shabbos. So when the Torah is Mati Chilul Shabbos or Kiddush HaChodesh, it always would be regarding Machshirin. How about Machshirei Pikuach Nefesh? So Pikuach Nefesh Deicher Shabbos. V'chai behem v'loi sheyomas behem. Is it only direct Pikuach Nefesh or Machshirin? Milta de Pshita, Masam B'chol Yom, women drive to a hospital to have a baby. That is Machshirin. Halachas Mefaroshes, if a Chodesh Yesh B'Sakuna needs meat, we cook meat. And there's a discussion, if you have Bosan Avela, you could shecht an animal. What do? You shecht an animal. That's a Psak and Shulchan Aruch. That's Machshirim. We need to shecht, mafshit, Merleach, Mevashel, long way, till the Chodesh Shesh V'Sakana will have a steak on his plate. So by Pikuach Nefesh Milte the Pshita, Machshirin is doicha. So once again, because Atzolas Nefesh not always involves Chilul Shabbos. So when the Torah says you're allowed to violate not only Shabbos, Kol HaTorah for Pikuach Nefesh, definitely means any Pikuach Nefesh. Especially if we learn from V'chai Bem, V'lo Shiyomes Bem, that is the goal, that's the objective. So it's not a heter of a Malocha Mesuyemes, and therefore by Pikuach Nefesh there's no difference. So it's a Teime B'Yeinai in Sefer Nishmas Avrom, quotes the Pshum Zalman Auerbach, and the Pshum Zalman says there's a difference between direct Pikuach Nefesh and Machshirin Pikuach Nefesh. So when doctors or nurses need to write medical information, that's protocol. Any medicine that is administered or any medical procedure needs to be recorded. And that definitely is a lifesaver, because if doctors wouldn't know exactly what's the patient's condition and which medicine did he take, then we're putting lives in danger. So the Nishmas Avrom quotes the B'Shem Zalman, and he says, even though the Shulchan Aruch paskins in Shin Chof Ches that you don't need to do a shinui by Pikuach Nefesh, but writing, which is only Machshirin Pikuach Nefesh, you need to do a shinui. And I think regarding Pikuach Nefesh, there is no concept of Machshirin. It's all the same. But I do agree that when you write or use a computer, try to do a shinui. I think it's a chiyuv, but you should try. But that's for a different reason, not because there's an essential difference between Pikuach Nefesh and Machshirin Pikuach Nefesh. It's all the same. It's all v'chai b'hem. But rather, it is very difficult to define the limits and boundaries of Pikuach Nefesh. So when we are dealing with huge bodies, like hospitals, the police force, the army, there is so much activity, thousands of acts and deeds, which in a way affect Pikuach Nefesh, but it is extremely difficult to clearly define. So when a patient has a slight headache and he gets Acamol, is that very important to record, to have on record? I can think of no scenario in which that might affect Pikuach Nefesh. But if you give drugs to control blood pressure, or chemotherapy, or other stuff, of course, that is extremely important. And it is impossible that every doctor and every nurse should need to contemplate when they come to record things, is it Pikuach Nefesh or not? Upholding protocol is Pikuach Nefesh, and therefore it is wise, and I tell this always to nurses, practice shinui. Practice. Practice not holding your pen like this, like you used to, but like this, or like this, any other way that makes it somewhat less comfortable. That is defined as a shinui, and that would be an Issa D'Rabbanan. So it's wise, but not because, in principle, there's a difference between Hatzolah and Machshirin Hatzolah. But Pikuach Nefesh, it's all the same. And the same regarding Melchama. So waging war is Derech Shabbos. And there are two different approaches. Why could we wage war on Shabbos? The classical approach is Atzolas Nefashos. Every war, to our dismay, there are casualties. Many times I said in the last 3 months, 1.5 wars in our history were without casualties. Why do I say 1.5? So who remembers when Israel won a war without one casualty? No one dead, no one injured. When was that? Do you know the story of Sancherev? Melech Ashur, who comes with a mighty army to fight Israel. And the last night before the decisive battle, he gets up in the morning, no one is there, quiet in the camp. They all died on one night, Sancherev's entire army. They got up in the morning and they realized they're dead. So that was a miracle. And we daven halavai tomorrow morning. We'll get up in the morning and all the Hamas terrorists will be dead. Kodesh Baruch Hu did it once, he could do it again. Just need to hope. Second time around, in Malchemes Midian, the Pasuk says, "V'lo nifkad mimenu ish." Ani yavom esamach beizem adalav. There's a machlokes in Gemara. What does it mean, "Lo nifkad mimenu ish"? No one was killed, or "Lo nifkad mimenu ish b'dvar aveiro." So I say in Malchemes Midian, it's a machlokes. Sancherev, it's a story in the Navi. But in normal circumstances, soldiers get killed. And to our dismay every day, we're losing young soldiers. So generally we say, every successful battle, every successful maneuver saves lives. Lives of soldiers and lives of civilians. They're out there fighting for us, for their families, for us, for our wives and children. So, successfully waging war is Pikuach Nefesh. However, the Sfas Emes has a gewaltige chiddush. Source number one, let's have a look at this source. Tana Rabbanon. We skip line 1, and we start from the middle of line 2. Tana Rabbanon. Ein tzorah male yoresh shanochram pochas megim yomam koydem Shabbos. You cannot lay siege to an enemy city 3 days before Shabbos. Ve'im etchilu ein mafsikin. V'chein hoyu shamay oimer. Ad rideto afilu b'Shabbos. So the Pasuk says in Parashat Shoftim, when you fight an enemy city, benisu alayamot matzor ad rideto afilu b'Shabbos. Yerushalmi, similar. Ein makif an aliyah shanochram pochas gun liyom lifnei Shabbos. Hadu the time of Machhemes Rishus, Machhemes Choy v'afilu b'Shabbos. Sheken matzinu, shelo nichbesha Yericho ela b'Shabbos. Uchsiv, ad rideto afilu b'Shabbos. So the Yerushalmi brings two sources that Israel is allowed to fight wars on Shabbos. Ad rideto, the same as the Bavli. And the other proof is Yericho. Yericho was conquered Shabbos. So do you remember the story? How the Jews destroyed Choymas Yericho? How did they do it? Sheva Kofos. Lifting their eyes to the heavens, Sheva Kofos, and the walls came tumbling down. And many times I say in Simchas Torah, what are the Sheva Kofos about? There's a chayma between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sheva Kofos tears down all the walls, brings down all the moats. And those are the Sheva Kofos of Simchas Torah. So what Chilul Shabbos was there? Oh, bringing the walls down didn't incur Chilul Shabbos. But then they conquered the city, and that was war. So this Vasema says, if war is Doiche Shabbos because it's Atzolos Nefoshes, what do we need Psukim? What do we need to prove from Malchemes Yericho? Why is it different than any other Atzolos Nefoshes? V'chai b'hem v'lo shiyomes b'hem. So the Sfas Emes in Shabbos Yutes writes, Melchama Doiche Shabbos, like Mila Bizmana Doiche Shabbos, like Karbonis Doiche Shabbos, like Kiddush HaChodesh Doiche Shabbos. Not necessarily because of Atzolos Nefoshes. And even if the generals would say, we could wait till Motzoi Shabbos, you don't need to wait. If this is the normal way to do it, Melchama Doiche Shabbos. And before the Sfas Emes, we find this in a Rivash. Who was the Rivash? Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem. So in some Hasidic form, Rivash is the Baal Shem Tov. But who was the other Ivash? Who knows? Anybody know? When did he live? What? Yeah. Towards the end of the period of the Rishonim. He was a Talmud of the Ran, one of the great Talmidim of the Ran. So way before this Vasemis. So there are two different approaches. Why Malchama is Doiche Shabbos? Im etchilu ein mafsikin. Is it the general concept of Pikuach Nefesh, or is it Alocha b'fnei atzmoi? Ben kach u ben kach, milta de pshita, that Machshirin Doiche Shabbos as well. If you need to travel to get to the battlefield, that's muta. So anything that needs to be done in preparation to fight successfully is Doiche Shabbos, just like Pikuach Nefesh, and just like Kiddush HaChodesh, and many other halachas. So today we try to define the different concepts regarding Machshirin, and we touched upon 6 different sugyas. Starting off with the Machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, Mila and Korbanos, Machlokes Chachomim and Rabbi Yehuda Machshira Yochal Nefesh, Kiddush HaChodesh, which Lekuli Alma, and then general Pikuach Nefesh and Malachama. So in this week's Parsha, after Makas B'choros, and after Pare realizes that he's lost, and he implores and begs Klal Yisrael, the Jews, please leave. And the Jews are standing by the Yam, and suddenly Pare goes crazy, and the Egyptians once again are out there to destroy the Jews. And the Jews are terrified, and they cry out to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu davens, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, Ma titzak elai, daber el bnei Yisrael v'yesou. Which is strange. We could understand daber el bnei Yisrael v'yesou, but what is the question, Ma titzak elai? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? What do good Jews do when they're betzorah, when their life is in danger? Do we have anything else to do? Isn't that what our forefathers did, what good Jews do? When they're in danger, they cry out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there's a profound thought shared by 3 of the greatest Gedolim. Nefesh HaChaim, Reb Chaim Evelozhin, the greatest Talmud of the Gra, Reb Pinchas Mekoretz. Who was Reb Pinchas Mekoretz? Huh? Who was his Rebbe? One of the great Talmidim of the Rivash. Not Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Sheshet, but a Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov, and the Or Chaim HaKodesh, on this very posuk, Ma titzak elai. Sometimes, only emunah and betochen could bring us nisim, not even tefillah. And this was a moment in which the koyach tefillah was not enough. Only emunah and betochen. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe the only way the Jews would be saved, plunge into the river and don't be afraid. And only then will they be zeiche to the nes. I want to suggest, and why was that? Usually tefillah is what is called for. I explained many times, Aseres HaMakas were not only to punish Paroi and Mitzrayim. The goal, the objective of the 10 plagues was to be mechazik Yiddish kendalach. And after hundreds of years of galus, to once again instill in their hearts emunah and betochen in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Yehuda haya noisem b'em samunim detzach adash ba'achav. And everybody wonders, why is this so important? Is there any significance in this 3 different sections? The tzach, adash, ba'achav. And how about datzcha and dashba and chav? So what's the chachma of the tzach, adash, ba'achav? Reb Shulei Diskin suggests, and in my Haggadah, I hope there will be a new Haggadah Minchas Osha for this coming Pesach. We're working on it very hard because the previous one is 20 years old. And for a good sefer, 20 years, it's a long, long lifetime. Needs to be renewed. I brought this Perish from Rishonim. The Makkahs were broken down into 3 categories, and maybe 4. 1, 2, and 3 were Ba'afara Oretz V'mei Tahom, the lowest level of the Bria. And that is Dam, the water of the rivers and oceans, Tzvardeya, and Kinnim. The next 3, Orav Deveshchin, 1 step up, Baalei Chaim, people and animals. The next 3, heavenly bodies, the winds that brought the Arba, Borod coming down from the sky, and Likui HaMa'oris of the Shemesh and the Yareach. And ultimately, number 10 is Benefesh Ha'odam. And this comes to teach, Elokei HaShamayim hu Elokei HaOretz, ve'ein oid melvadoi. There's only one Koyach in the world, no one else and nothing else. And that is the Chachma of breaking down the Aseres HaMakas into categories, the Tzach, Adash, Ba'achav. So the goal of the 10 plagues was not only to punish Parai. To the contrary, Ani Ekshesias Liboi. So Parai shouldn't be punished for his stubbornness and refusal. It was more about the Jews. After hundreds of years of being torn away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is why the ultimate test when they're standing al hayam is Emunah and B'tochen. That is what it's all about. Did you learn your lesson? Did you learn your lesson from the Tzach Hadash Ba'achav? Did you achieve Shleimus in Emunah and B'tochen? And that's why Kodesh Baruch Hu says, Mati Tzakailai. No, now is not the time for Tefillah. This is your ultimate test after the 10 Makkos. Are you willing to plunge into the sea and have B'tochen and HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And once they did that, Vayavoy b'nei Yisrael b'terchayim b'yabosha, v'amayim lemchaymo miyaminam u'mismailam. So it's the Orach Chaim, the Nefesh Chaim, and the Baal Shem Tov, representing all the 3 fundamental machnas of Bnei Yisrael. The Orach Chaim from the Mizrach, the Baal Shem Tov, and Reb Chaim Mevolozhin. And it's the Zohar. So once again, we're waiting for Nisim. We're waiting for miracles. And sometimes, B'tochen is the most important thing that will bring us Nisim. So I heard a beautiful story from my great Rebbe, the Kloisenberger Rebbe, many times. A woman once came to the Divrei Chaim with a terrible sorrow. She has one only son. He's gravely ill. The doctors say he's dying. The Rebbe should give a bracha. You should have it for Shalem. The Divrei Chaim says $500 or Rheinisch or whatever it was, or Rubal, don't know. And the woman says, I'm an almona, I have no money, please, the Rebbe should give a bracha. And the Divrei Chaim insists, I said $500. She leaves his house. Few hours later, she comes back and she said, I took loans from all my neighbors, from anyone I know. I have 300. Will the Rebbe please give a bracha? And the Rebbe says, I said 500 and not 1 penny less. Out of total frustration, she says, if the Rebbe doesn't want to help, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help. So the Divrei Chaim says, now take back your $300. I never intended to take a penny, but that is what I wanted to hear. No Rebbe could help you. It is only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We could daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that is what I wanted to hear. If the Rebbe can't help, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help. No one can help us in any way besides HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ein lanu lihishoin ela al Avinu shebeshamayim. And when we understand that, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps. So my Rebbe used to say, it's a Gemara at the end of Soita, Al mi yesh lanu lihishoin ela al Avinu shebeshamayim. Usually we say that phrase in such a nebech tone. Oh, it was such a nebach. No one could help us. No one wants to help us. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you say that, you need to stand tall and cry out, B'koil Godol. No one can help us. No one needs to help us. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we finally understand, Ashur lo yeshuenu, al sus lo nirkav oid, v'lo noimer oid Eloheinu lamasi yudeinu, and it is only HaKadosh Baruch Hu should can help us, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu never forsakes us. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always there for us. So sometimes betochen is the most important factor when we need nisim. So one of the things we need to be mischazik in these times is betochen. Hashem ish malchama, HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls the world. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu does everything. And when we rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, be'ezas Hashem, we should see nisim, v'neflois, and siyata d'shmaya. And we should be zoiche bekorov to peace. In Eretz HaKodesh, we should be zoiche bekorov to a Yeshua's Elamim, and bias Moshiach Tzedkeinu, b'mheru v'yomeinu, amen. Good Shabbos.